Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Grand Final Stories. Today we are joined by two of the 2010 St George Illawarra Dragons Premiership winning team, Jamie Soward and Brett Morris. Lads, thanks so much for joining us here. Really excited to get into some of those Grand Final stories, the year that was. What are your first impressions when you think back to the year that was 2010? BMOS, come to you first.
Yeah, for me it was a special year. Being a Dragons fan growing up, old boy playing at the club, being a part of the previous premiership that had been so long that Dragons fans had waited for, to be able to be a part of that team that brought them a premiership trophy. That was pretty special. But yeah, I mean, that's, as a kid growing up, all you want to do is hold that trophy above your head. And we had a tough year 2009, and it felt like that was our destiny, was to win that comp in 2010. So there's a lot of hard work that went into it. But if you asked anyone at the start of 2010, do you think we're going to win the comp? I reckon everyone would have said yes. So it was a good buy-in from everyone, and yeah, I mean, the results showed we got there in the end.
Sorry, first recollection, first memory?
I think winning at one of the biggest clubs in Australia in terms of brand-wise, I think that was something to be really proud of. As BMOS said, 2009 was a tough way to go out, and we'll go into that. But yeah, I'd watched the Dragons growing up. My dad was a fan, my stepdad was a fan, so dressing up as I wasn't a fan. I was whoever was on top growing up, but watching them lose 99. Dressed up in a Dragons jersey and the heartache that my stepdad felt, and then being able to do it with, looking back over the last 15 years, probably not the most outstanding, talented guys individually in terms of top of their position, but definitely as a group, I felt like we were a very, very tight group, which made it special. So it was a good year.
You mentioned 2009. You win the minor premiership, and it was the old McIntyre system, I believe, where one plays 8. And then you lose, and then the pressure's on, and you lose again. It's not supposed to happen. What?
That happened 2 years in a row.
Did it?
Yeah, we watched, I think Melbourne lost to the Warriors in 2008 when Michael Witt scored down there at Olympic Park. And we were like, how does that happen? Because we finished 7th, I think, the year before. And we had Manly at Manly, and I think they beat us by 40. And then we watched that, and we're like, oh, how does that happen, 1v8? And fast forward, and yeah, playing the same team 2 weeks in a row, we jobbed it. Like, we didn't play well at all, but we beat Para 37-0, and then 2 years in a row it happened, 1v8. Both the 8th team won, which was crazy.
Yeah, mate, it was bizarre. Like Sally said, we played Para the week before, and we put a score on them. And you know, speaking to Ando now about it, he goes, yeah, we got you as a good one. Daniel Anderson was obviously the coach of Parramatta at that time.
So you play them in the penultimate round?
Yeah, round 26.
Put an absolute cricket score on them?
Yep.
And then you play them
and then we play them the week after. And, yeah, mate, they caught us with our pants down. They absolutely give it to us. We obviously went in there with probably a bit of a cocky attitude. We knew we had a good team, but... yeah, I suppose the mindset of that, us going into that game, thinking that we'd, dusted them the week before, it was just going to happen again. And, mate, they were red hot. Obviously, they had a fair player there who was having a wonderful year as well. So we knew he was going to be hard to handle. But
Did he play that week?
That day?
They changed everything. Like,
no, I think he did.
BMOS got the try scoring record that night. Like, he had to get 3 to get it. So he got it that night. The house was rocking. But then the next week, like, they were backing off on edges, 3-on-2s. They weren't jamming in at all. Next week, they just switched everything. We did the same move. Growth took an intercept off me around the length, and then, as BMOS said, Hayne just destroyed us. But it was like, yeah, I don't know if we were cocky. I think we probably, like, assumed that.
Yeah,
we just looked past it. Because we'd been getting ready for the final series for a long time. Like, we'd won the minor premiership. We'd been getting ready. And I reckon we just overlooked it.
Yeah, we definitely just got it wrong there. And the next part was obviously, we lost that game. We were the best team all year, minor premiers, and then we have to go away week 2 of the finals up to Brisbane.
Yeah.
Which is probably the toughest place you can go in an elimination final.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, when you were up against it up there, being, having lost the week before and
Wayne
up
as your
there.
coach
Wayne
as well.
as your coach. There was all these factors, but yeah, it was just that steeled us for the year after.
Well, that's it, BMOS, because it can go a number of ways at a season like that. That you can feel like your chance is gone. We'll never get this chance again. We've played so well. We couldn't have done any more in the season. What do we do? The mindset of the players, it seems, speaking to you, was very much like, no, we're going to build on this. We're going to use this experience. We're not going to choke next year or feel sorry for ourselves. We're going to actually do something about it. Now, in the preseason, very influential player both on and off the field, Wendell Saylor retires. But the group come together. Was there anything different about that preseason?
Oh, not like the way that we trained in 09 was, for some of us guys, like it was the hardest preseason we'd done. So we were just like, holy crap. But we saw the results we got out of training that hard and working that hard. So if anything, it just gave us that extra drive. Like, we've got unfinished business. We didn't do what we wanted to do last year, and we know that we've got a side that's capable of competing against the best sides.
Was it spoken about in terms of like a
choking sort of thing?
Yeah, like
not really.
A sort of a meeting, because you've used the word destiny there when I first came to you. Was it spoken about okay, we need to move past this? When you think to, say, the Broncos of 2023, like, did they address that well enough? So I'm thinking back to that time, going out in straight sets when you were so heavily favoured to win the competition. Was it internally addressed?
In terms of our performance, yeah, and our mindset, I reckon that's probably the thing that we addressed going into the next pre-season. Because as I said, like a lot of people, the outside media, they just wanted to write us off course chokers again, and that was the tag that Dragons had for so long. And the other thing that was, the media liked to go with that, there were guys in our team that grand final prelim 05, grand final prelim 06, so they'd been close but hadn't got there, and the media just jumped on that again and, wanted to write us off as a bunch of chokers again. But internally, we knew that wasn't us. Like, we had a team that was good enough to get there. We just missed it.
Yeah, I think Wayne just reiterated the point. We don't have to change things. We just have to do it better at the right time of the year. And the difference probably between us and the Broncos is the Broncos got there to the grand final. We still had a massive part of the mountain to climb and get there. I don't think you address it as an individual. You probably go, this is my chance. I've missed it. I mean, you've played enough big games. But as a group, like BMOS said, it was sort of steely. Dell was a huge personality off the field, and, really good for us younger guys about preparation and being yourself and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't that kind of group. Like, we'd had, like BMOS said, like Benny, Dino, Benny Cray, Coops, like all those guys had lost in big games before. So maybe they were thinking, is this our chance? Have we missed it? But for us, like, we were 23 going, okay, how do we just want to keep playing. So how do we get back to that versus, like, have we missed our chance? And, for us, I think the pre-season in 09, I heard you talk about army camps with Cheese last week. That army camp and that pre-season made us the group that we were.
From 09.
From 09. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in terms of army camp. And that steeled us together for what was going to be ahead. And we didn't know how the next 2 years were going to pan out, obviously. But
that's laying the foundation.
It laid the foundation because we would remind each other about the trenches that, trenches as in athlete trenches that we'd been in and what we'd done.
Draw on that experience.
It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
December, January of 09.
Yeah, we had 4 SAS guys
yeah.
that just absolutely nailed us for 3 days.
3 days?
Yeah, it was the hardest thing ever. I had nightmares for like 2 weeks afterwards.
You're laughing now, BMOS.
But that camp...
he's not wrong.
That camp, the next 2 years we couldn't do it. We'd already reached that mental togetherness that they tried to do it the next 2 years, and we just took the piss. We were like, we can't get... Like, you won't break us.
Oh, so you went back again?
They tried to do different forms of it, and we ended up brushing it because we were just like, mate, you're not the same as this guy. We've done it. And that forged us. Maybe that helped us after the disappointment of 09.
Wayne Bennett been mentioned plenty of times already. Comes in 09. Had you been there under previous regime?
Yeah, I was there under Brownie, yeah.
Yeah. How did he sprinkle his magic dust that he's so famous for?
I think, Wayne rang me and said that I want you to be my 5'8". And I divided opinion in terms of the way I played. Not a great defender, didn't run the ball enough, all that kind of stuff. Wayne never ever talked to me about that.
So that first conversation is, you're my 5'8".
You're my 5'8". I want you to...
How good's that?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, sweet. And at the time, I still hadn't established myself in first grade. Wayne came, as Beamer said, our pre-season setup, it was the hardest thing. Like, we'd never trained like that at all. And he just gave yourself a confidence. He made you work on the things that you're really good at. So for me, if you go back and watch the game from now to back then, like, it's totally, we wouldn't be able to compete now. We just wouldn't be fast enough. But just work on kicking, work on understanding that your last play is yours, all that kind of stuff for me, which gave me a lot of confidence. I'd come out of Ricky Stewart's system, success at the Roosters, where we hadn't gone on with it, and then to come to the Dragons where they had all these great players and we just weren't being able to get there. We didn't change the roster at all too much. Wayne just gave you the confidence to go out there and practice the stuff that you're really good at.
Because you were still finding your way, still quite young in your early 20s at this point. Competition between yourself, Wendell, and Nightingale. How did you find Wayne when he first came in?
He called me Josh when he first met me.
That's an insult.
Mate, well, it's like, Josh at the Dogs, mate, so do you want me or not? Nah, mate. Oh, yeah, first impression, I was like, oh, mate, this guy's getting a bit old. Has he lost his shit or what? But, no, like Sally said, Wayne's the type of person that can walk into a room, look at a person, watch what they do, and I reckon within 5 or 10 minutes he knows what makes that person tick, their personality, what sort of player they need, what sort of feedback they need. Like, he's just so good at picking people. And that's his biggest attribute as a coach. And like Sally said, like, there'll be times where he knows some guys need a arm around their shoulder. There'll be sometimes he knows a guy needs a good spray. One thing that Wayne was good at too, he wouldn't put people on show. Like, if a guy had a really good game, he wouldn't sit there and pump up his tyres. If a guy had a really bad game, he wouldn't sit there and go to town on him either. He was very fair across the board, but I felt like the way that he did that, it brought our team together, because there was never... He allowed the players to do that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the players, we'd take the piss out of each other, but that was the relationship and the connection that we built. But Wayne was there as, the overseer, the mentor. If anyone had anything happening outside of footy, he was always there to talk to, but he made you show up to your game ready to give your best week in, week out.
What about his reviews? So he would have his own sheet of reviews, and Beamos talks about not putting anyone on show, and he stats it himself. Well, Scotty Barker would stat it for him, right? And he'd come in and it'd have a little comment. So, like, you'd walk in if you had a good game, and it'd be like, well done, did your job, blah, blah, blah. And you got to rate yourself out of 10. Anyway, one game I hadn't played well, and he just wrote, I don't know who that guy in the number 6 was, but it wasn't you. And just left it there. So you'd read your comment first, and then you just start hearing all the giggles because everyone else is reading yours, right? And I think maybe, I don't know if it was you or someone else said, like, you didn't deserve a shower on the weekend.
Mate, he gave me that one. We were playing Warriors over there. It was freezing cold, raining, wind coming in sideways. Origin was the week after. We were about to go into Origin, and I knew that I was in the squad. And I was just like, mate, just get through this game. Do whatever you can, but just get through this game, mate. I warmed up in a jumper. That's how cold it was. And you could tell I was like, I don't want to be here. And, mate, I think I still scored a try and set 2 tries up, but I had very limited touches in the game like I do, yeah. And I went straight into Origin camp after this. So I didn't get the player review after the game. And first thing I get is a phone call. How was the review? You didn't even deserve a shower. Mate, had written that on the sheet, so I missed a good one. But yeah, hey, when he gave you some feedback like that, sometimes it hit you right between the eyes. But again, he knew what he was. He knew how you'd take it.
In terms of building that camaraderie between the team, and you've spoke about Wayne and his comments, and you look back and great characters make any great team. who are some of the ringleaders in that piss taking?
Yeah, there was always, it was the common blokes that were in there. Trent Merrin, Jake Marchetto, Nick Emmett was always involved in them as well. Who else was in there? It was most of the time it was the young guys because they were the ones that were going out and having a bit of fun on the weekend, and there'd always be stories to tell. But they were the guys that they just handled getting shit put on them, and
Yeah.
and
Dan
they
Hunt.
loved it. Dan Hunt was another
Dan
one.
Hunt, yeah. It'd get personal, but it was always never taken to the next part. And I remember the first bus trip, Michael Wayman came down and sat right at the back of the bus, and Wayne just walked down and kicked him out of the back and sat down the back of the bus for 3 years. He just sat in, he integrated himself into the group. He wanted to hear all the stories from all the single boys.
So Wayne would sit at the very
back of the bus.
On the bus journeys.
Yep,
wherever
back
you
of the
went, yeah.
bus, yep. And he just wants to hear about your life. And that's how he picked up on how you were going as a person and maybe whether you needed a cuddle or not. But, yeah, the banter at times, I think looking back, was probably overstepping the line. And I don't know if you'd be able to do it now.
Well, again, it's a pre-WhatsApp group era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's smartphones are just about
They're getting
Like there was no Instagram.
mainstream,
There was no
but
Instagram or
there's no
anything like that.
Instagram.
So even after games, like
there was no, and I guess as well, like if you're traveling on the coach together back then, like the only form of real entertainment is yourselves. Like,
Yeah.
we had no phones on the bus, no phones.
Was that a rule?
Yeah, well, we just didn't need it.
Yeah.
We just were that tight. We had no phones in the dressing room. After a game, like you said, smartphones weren't smartphones.
You don't need to be filming a message for your
Mate, I
Instagram
don't remember ever
followers.
pulling my phone out for a team song. I've got no
No.
footage of that at all. Whereas now we look at people, they want to check their super coach or, that. Like, we just didn't need it. It was great.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was really cool.
So it's an interesting tactic from Wayne, because I've been a part of his teams before in international duties, and where he sits himself at the back. I still don't know another coach that replicates that strategy, but
It's a shock at first when
It
he
is.
walks down there and you go,
Because
hang on, isn't
you're
the
sort of
coach
holding
supposed
some
to
of your
say that?
stories back. Like,
Yeah.
some of the single boys, he'd want to know, and they'd be sort of like pulling back a little bit, and you'd be like, he just told us that story. That's not the story. But he wants to hear, he wants to be a part of it. He
He
loved
even
it.
start telling his own stories too.
Yeah.
Which was even funnier. Wayne tell a story. Mate, he had some cracker stories. I don't know if he added some GST to them, but they were outstanding.
because you do it's almost in that dead time where you get to dead time, relaxed time. People are being themselves, where he gets to know, what
Yeah, well,
they're
that's it.
about,
There's-
and where you sit on the bus, it says a lot about character and personality type, and it.
Where do you sit as a coach?
Where
You
do
sit
I
up the
s-
front?
We don't really go on buses too much, but I sat up the front anyway. I like to get off the bus and get in the sheds straight away and
It's
start
funny.
stretching and
I've sat
prepping.
at the back with girls. It's totally different. Like, they're loose as. they're loose as. But I reckon it made, firstly, it just made him, he had that presence. So the 09, him and Dell would just shoot barbs back and forth, and that sort of made everyone feel comfortable. 2010, it was probably a little bit more business-like, but we'd have days where signing days where you sign jerseys, where we'd get on the piss. We'd train in the morning, do your 1,000 signatures or whatever, and then we'd have a piss up and have the next day off. I don't know if you can't do that now, but you probably don't want to do that now. BMO's probably tell you in systems, but all that stuff, we just didn't have phones. We just didn't.
I will say the other thing he did time them well.
Yeah. Oh,
He
yeah.
timed them so well.
The
The
signing
"Hey, boys,"
days or get on the piss.
Or, hey, we're not training today. We're going to the pub. We've got a games day lined up at the pub. We played like minute to win it games one time, but it was late in the year and he felt like the players just needed to let off some steam together. I still remember we were all there till, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock. No, we got there at 10 o'clock in the morning. But Wayne was there the whole time, sitting in the middle of it, telling stories. And he was just letting us let some steam off. And then, rightio, boys, we're back to work tomorrow or the next day. And it was, I don't know, he just had a knack of timing that sort of stuff perfectly as well. Knowing what the group needed.
Yeah, in a collision sport, I think it can be so valuable, that bonding time together, that just switch off, forget about football, enjoy each other's company. Wayne,
The other thing too that was what we did that year, well, when Wayne first showed up, was we moved everything down to Wollongong. So all the training and everything was full-time down Wollongong. Now, we still had guys that lived in Sydney, but a lot of the guys from Sydney decided, hang on, I'm going to move down to Wollongong now as well. So a lot of the group actually ended up in Wollongong, away from the Sydney, all the media, all that sort of stuff. And that built our connection even more.
I was going to say that because it was interesting when I was at the Dragons, it was maybe a third of the squad based in Sydney, a third in the Gong, and then probably another third even further down south. And it was geographically, it restricted our ability to connect, and the club, had to go above and beyond to almost force that togetherness. But with Wayne,
I started in Sydney and then moved down.
Yeah.
I think at the end of 2009, and I understand it. Like Sydney, if you live in Sydney, traveling down, but after training, you're trying to go home all the time.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. We had a lot of the guys that would go for coffee afterwards, or
you just want to hang out with
they
each
just want to
other.
hang out, and that built that extra camaraderie. And Wayne's rules about not being late and all that kind of stuff. Like, we just had time for each other. As simple as that sound, we gave each other time, and that built respect and that built trust.
Well, the season is going along very smoothly. You're up near the top. I think you were never out of first or second. And returns Mark Gasiner. How was that when he came into the group? Because I guess looking at it, you think somebody's got to miss out because Gasiner comes in, but we were talking before that Matt Pryor was playing in the centres.
Yeah, Matty Pryor was a front rower playing in the centres there for a bit. So we had guys sort of, Nick Emmett filled that slot for a while as well. We had guys sort of coming in and out of that position. So obviously when Gaz said he wanted to come back, I think everyone sort of agreed, get him back.
Was that a conversation Wayne had with the senior players?
I think he had it with the senior players.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had it with the senior players, and they all sort of, we're on board, let's do it. The thing was that when he showed up, but he had to show us that he was buying into what we were doing, because he'd been gone and a lot of things had changed since he had gone over to play rugby. Okay, different coach, different sort of culture. Different style of footy.
We're playing
we
way
weren't
different style.
like Gaz was I wouldn't say he was a big ego, but when he left the game, he was the best centre in the game when he left. Obviously, going out of rugby league, playing a different sport, Wayne was like, well, mate, you've got to earn your way back into this team. We want to see whether you're up to it. So Wayne played him in the back row when he first came back. Said, mate, if you want to be part of this team, you're going to tackle. And so he played him in the back row, make him tackle, get his fitness back up. So he wasn't just handed, here's your right centre spot, this is yours. Like, no, you've got to earn it. So, mate, he'd make Gaz defend it back row and Bo defend in the centres, and then in attack they were swapping over. So then he'd get to go back out in the centres in attack, get his breath back to come back in and make defence.
How long did this last for?
I think it's a couple of weeks.
It was a couple of weeks. It was a couple of weeks when he first came back.
It was weird. Like, I was like, anyone that watched us for 09-10, like, I think BMOS scored 50 tries in 2 years. We were left side dominant. So we had out the back Darius round 2, Shell and Peas. Like, we could attack right, but it wasn't as fluent as what Benny was doing to the left. He'd take the ball to the line. I wasn't great at that. Benny Craig run that line, so we'd had to change. So when Gaz came back, I was different because of the system, but I was actually quite nervous because we weren't attacking well on the right-hand side. So was it going to be early ball to Gaz? Was it going to be changing angles, all this kind of stuff? And like I said, if you look at I think we were like 70-30 in terms of how many tries we'd scored on that left-hand side. So it was hard at start to try and get Gaz ball, because when we'd played before under Brownie's system, like, get the ball to Gaz, he'd try and do something, and that was it. Yeah. I hadn't really learned anything else. Then we had Darius, who probably should have won the Dally M, I reckon, in 2010. He was more hanging at the left-hand side because he got to do what he did, but when he came to the right-hand side, it wasn't as fluent. So it was a work in progress, and Beam was right about the Gaz working in the back row, but like Bowie wasn't a natural centre. He was a back row playing the centres. We had chop and change down that right-hand side. So again, like, I joke about it, but on Mondays we'd laugh because we were like, how is not anyone defending our left-hand side? Like, literally, we'd go 2 plays, post, out the back, dubs, BMOS scores. We'd had to try and change it to the right-hand side and try and fit Gaz back into that. And to his credit, his ego, he'd put his ego aside and played in the back row. He worked really hard. And I remember him saying to me, like, just tell me what we're doing. Whereas before, when I'd play with Gaz, I was like, oh, shit, that's Mark Gasiner.
Yeah, give him the pill.
Just give him the ball, get out of his way, shimmy, shimmy, whoosh, you know. Like, he's the only person that's ever had stitched into his boots what he's going to do to the opposition player. He had shimmy, shimmy, whoosh stitched into his boots. That's how good he was, right? So I was quite nervous when he came back in because I was like, because Bowie was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know how to get all that together at once, but yeah, it ended up working.
Great.
He was amazing when he did get back. Did you feel as though that was like the missing piece of the puzzle?
He just gave us a different option on the right hand side.
Yeah, so you've now got
yeah.
If you're if you're playing against the Dragons, the smart coaches would set up your favoured side.
Yeah,
and now you've got genuine threats. Both.
You've got genuine threats. You had Coops and the I guess professionalism and execution wise on the left hand side. Like I said, BMOS scoring tries, Coops running the line, Ben Cray, Hornby, Boyd. On the right hand side, we're sort of mixing around, mixing positions, but we had a threat there now. It wasn't just to set up to come back to the left hand side. And yeah, in the grand final, we scored our tries down the right hand side. So we had some options there to be able to go early or change angles or just something a little bit different. And the unsung heroes, like Bo Scott, pretty much sacrificed his career in the back row to protect me to go to centres, and I was defending out in the wing nearly.
Yeah.
So we had different ways and different systems of doing it, but Gaz was a missing piece, I think, in terms of giving us some stability on that right-hand side in terms of our attack. And then defensively, he became a really good defensive centre. I mean, if he already wasn't, but he was a really good defensive centre when he came back as well.
If you look at the sort of makeup of the squad and the regular 17 throughout the season, it did remain relatively stable and also subsequently moving into finals. One player that sort of missed out a little bit was Luke Prittis, who spent most of that regular season at 9 and then was dropped towards the back end and for finals. Did that affect the group at all, or is that just football?
Yeah, it's hard because it is just football. That's the reality of our sport. When we're in the business to try and win competitions, and you got to play your best 17. So, I mean, you look at the start of that year, Feensy was starting as our 9, and then obviously broke his ankle round 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, round 1. Yeah,
broke his ankle round 1 pretty badly, and was out pretty much the whole year. I think he might have came back round 25, something like that, 26.
Very late.
He was literally back end of the year, but in that time, Prito had played that sort of stopgap between him and Dino. Played a bit of 9 that year as well.
Dino would start at times and then go to 13, and then Luke would come on at 9, but they were different players.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Feensy was, he came to us halfway through 09 and sort of changed, like catapulted us into a bit more attack out of 9. We could play out of 9, and Prito did a fantastic job. But yeah, like Bemo said, it was footy, and it's not under 6s where everyone gets a go. Yeah. It's what can we do to win? And Wayne saw something. Wayne didn't just get Feensy across to make up the numbers. He had to be a vital piece for us to help us win.
You go on to win the minor premiership, same as you did last year, right? Or in 09. Yeah. What's the mood in the camp like? Again, the media would be saying, "Oh, same old Dragons," but what's the mood in the camp like?
The biggest thing was the learning from the year before. It doesn't matter what you do in those 26 rounds before. Those 4 weeks are a totally different comp. You throw form out the window, you throw all that sort of stuff out the window. You've got to get your mindset right, and you've got to be dialed in. And every session needs to you need to nail it. So you need to walk onto that field on that weekend knowing that you've done everything you can to prepare mentally and physically to go after that opposition. And I felt that's where we nailed it that year after. If you watch that first final we played against Manly, was it 28-0? Yeah. 28-0. We just come out of the gates and we were on. We were, as a bunch of 13, and then obviously the 4 guys that come off the bench, we were just on for 80 minutes. We did not let up. We didn't give them an inch. And that was the biggest lesson I felt that we learnt, that, hang on, this is a totally different competition now. We need to get this right. And that was the lesson that we learnt the year before, and to actually put that into practice that first week of the finals and go, okay, we've learned our lesson here. We know what we need to do.
With that performance, did you almost prove to yourselves that you did belong and you can win it?
I'm
thinking about that voice in the back of the head that maybe, all right, we're all saying the right things here at training, we're all performing like we are at training, but then there's that voice in the back of the head that goes, maybe the media's right, well, maybe they've got a point, and then you go out, you win convincingly, and you get the evidence that, hey, if we play well, we're better than anybody.
The 2 years, so 2009 I think we lost 3 out of our last 5, and then 2010 I think we lost 3 out of our last 5 maybe again. That first week against Manly, the media were talking, like, I just remember watching clips of like ghosts coming around our throat and calling us the chokers and all that kind of stuff. I'd never played finals before 2009, like I'd missed 2008, but in 2009, it was sort of like, holy shit, this is exciting, like we're here, all this kind of stuff. 2010 was like, all right, we've arrived. We're a bit more business-like, and that set the tone for what was going to be a special month for us. But going into that game, I felt we looked at each other a bit more in the eye and said we knew what we deserved, what we'd worked for, but what we expected of each other a little bit more. Whereas 2009 was maybe, looking back, sort of the older guys had been there and did that to themselves, and we were like, oh shit, we're going to win this. In 2010, Melbourne had been, their salary cap had sort of come in the way, so we knew we were the best team, but we just knew what we expected each other in 2010.
I was going to come to that because you speak about destiny. You obviously did go on to win it. Come finals time, you're looking at who else is in there. You feel as if you play your best and they play their best. Anybody in the 8, you win. Is that the mentality of the Dragons?
Going into that final series, the only team that I thought could beat us was ourselves.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird ladder, wasn't it? Like without Melbourne, we finished first, Bulldogs, Penrith second, Raiders, Bulldogs, Tigers,
Gold Coast. Roosters.
Yeah, Gold Coast may have even finished higher.
Gold Coast were third or fourth.
Yeah, third or fourth. So it was a weird sort of ladder, but yeah, BMOS was right. We'd proven to ourselves, and Melbourne probably the only team.
Yeah. Was that strange with Melbourne being rubbed out?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was because we played down there early in the year against them, and
they bathed us
down there. They beat us. Like they schooled us that day.
Yeah.
They were the better team, but at the start of the year, if you'd asked me who's going to be your biggest competition, who do you think you're going to play in the grand final, I would have said the Storm straight away.
Yeah.
And then
we beat them in Sydney though. We beat them at Cogra.
7 rounds into the competition, they docked their points and told they can't make finals. So it becomes a totally different competition.
Was that spoken about?
No.
Within the
Not
group,
once.
when you speak about destiny, and you back yourselves, but mate, that's a big advantage. Melbourne not playing for points.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Like, obviously, it was a shock to everyone, but once it was said and done and everyone knew the result, it was just, let's get on with it, business as usual. You just knew they weren't going to be there in the final series. And credit to them, they still played footy and made it hard for every team in the competition, but you knew they weren't playing finals, so it was just,
I think
out of your review, pretty much.
We were the only team that were going to beat ourselves. We looked at that final series as it's us v us, and it led all that way to the grand final. But Melbourne, they beat us down there, we beat them up here. Like, I felt like it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't sort of us winning because Melbourne weren't in the comp. They had a great side, so many great players, but I felt like we'd learned some valuable lessons from the year before about who we were and how we wanted to play and what our best game was, and not to steer too far from plan A and all that kind of stuff, which held us in good stead.
The win against Manly, that grants you a week off?
Yep.
Yeah. What happens in the week off? Like, just, again, this is new territory for you as a group. You've got a week off.
Recovery straight away, and then you start getting into... Wayne was real big on organising everything really early, so we trained, but we'd organised our tickets for the semi-final against whoever it was going to be. We knew it was going to be at the Olympic Park, but just getting all that stuff sorted out of the way. So that by the time we'd come into camp to go into camp at Swiss Grand at Bondi, we'd had all that stuff, all that extracurricular stuff that was going to annoy us a couple of days out. Family going, I need tickets. How am I going to get there? All that stuff. We'd already done that, so we enjoyed the week off. I think we had the weekend off.
We had the weekend off, and blokes had a drink.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure Wayne said, do what you normally do on the weekend. Like if you go and have a few beers, go and have a few beers. Like it was
because Raiders were playing
you can't
Tigers.
Do this, you can't do that. It was, boys, it's your weekend. Go and have some fun. Go and do what you want. Spend it how you want.
Yeah.
But when you turn up Monday, we're business. We're going.
Was he encouraging you to watch the games, not watch the games, or just?
Yeah, I didn't want because that week Raiders were playing Tigers, and I think Jared Croker missed after the bell to send it to extra time.
Yeah.
Canberra
beat us twice that year.
And Canberra beat us twice. I remember Wayne said, "Don't watch it." I remember watching it going, man, I just don't know if we have, like, I know we're good, but Canberra just, you play the Dragons. Canberra just that team. We just, and they had Campese. They just had a style that just probably troubled us a little bit more. But when he missed, it was like, we played the Tigers. I don't know if we were relieved, but we're probably just a little bit like, Canberra beat us twice. They beat us at Wollongong. They spanked us in Canberra, and Wayne sort of didn't get too much into watching the games. He didn't want us to watch Roosters Titans the night before we played the Tigers, but it was like Bennett said, we were business as usual. Like go and get on the piss, get away, come back refreshed. Like that was his big thing: is stick to your routine. Everyone's routine is different, but you prep your own time. If you go out and have a beer the night before, go and do it. Like that's your thing.
Speak about prep. And you said you would go into camp. Was this just for finals games, or had you gone into camp in Sydney for other Sydney games?
Nah, we just camped the semi-final. Just the semi-final against West Tigers. Yeah.
Did you camp against Manly as well?
Nah.
No. So did that give it a sense that there was something different then? If you'd not gone to camp for Manly, because that game would have been played at Cogra.
I think it was more about we knew it was going to be a big crowd. Like there was 80,000 expected, and all the hype was around the 05 boys, Tigers v Dragons. Yeah, that magical year of Benji and all the boys, and they upset the Dragons. So it was all about that. So getting us to camp at Bondi, we just all were together. Like again, no phones. It was we could go to we were all going to get to the game on the same time. Yeah. There was no any of that stuff.
So what day do you move into Bondi?
We played Saturday night. I think we went in Thursday afternoon. We might have trained.
No, we would have done captain's run at Cogra and then gone after that.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, so it's literally just the night before when we're talking about.
I don't reckon we were in there for 2 nights.
Was that grand final? Yeah, maybe grand final. We went in a tad earlier, but it was just about trying to keep it as. Because you'd go to the bus, you'd go to a game together on the bus.
Yeah.
You'd meet somewhere if you were playing Dragons v Bulldogs now. Like you'd go and meet together because there's no parks there.
It certainly seems like there's a sense of occasion building for this game against the Tigers, though. Like there's something different. And obviously there's a spot in the grand final on the line. Was that the feeling amongst the playing roster?
Oh, shit myself.
Really?
Oh, shit myself. I remember going to the game and I was like... Because 09, we were there, gone to sleep for a month. I'm going to hold the trophy. I've been dreaming of this since I was 4, holding the trophy. Holy shit, I'm watching someone else win the trophy. Then all the build-up, like I said, about the 05 guys, and I was just like, okay, this is it. You're so close. It's the hardest game to win because you know what's on the other side is a memory forever, and what's on the other side is devastation forever, and how do you get back from that? So, I was shit myself. The build-up, there was 80,000. I just remember running out, and it's the loudest noise I've ever heard. Like, half Tigers, half Dragons. It was just, honestly, for a semi-final, it was the best feeling. Just running out and having a full house. It was cool.
Yeah. I'd played in the grand final qualifier in 06. So that was the first opportunity from that one to get back into that game. And I just remember just saying, I'm just going to do anything I can to play my best game of footy, whatever's required, just do it. No matter how much it hurts or whatever, just do whatever you need to do to win.
I've read
because you don't know if you're ever going to get back to one. And that was my mindset going into that game. Was just go hard.
You read the reports from that game, and they say it was like a war. You guys were on top in possession, but the Tigers.
Mate, we were struggling to get out of our own end.
Yeah, because I made a shit read on an edge. They got us with a little backdoor play. Lottie scored, and it was 6-0, and the crowd was going off, and we were like, okay, because we hadn't traditionally for those 2 years, we weren't a great team. We weren't a great team in terms of chasing points. We'd take the 2, get to 4, get to 6, and we'd strangle you. Yeah, and we'd be happy to win a game.
Good front runners.
Yeah. You know, I think our second game under Wayne, we won 10-6 over Cronulla. And it was a boring game, but we just knew who we were. When we got 6 behind, it was like, oh, okay, all good, let's stick to the plan. Then inside ball, Louis scores, and it's 12-0. You know, we had a lot of possession, but we just couldn't get out of our end. Like, they were just strangling us. And then every time we got down there, like, there's clips of the ball coming, and they're up past the ball. They were just up and in because we were trying to get to the outside of them. They
came with a clear plan to shut your attack down.
Great coaching. They'd come past it. Like, I'd be looking there, and they'd be up past the ball. Like, we just couldn't get to the outside at all. They'd taken the left-hand side away.
The tactic of really shut down your space as a ball player, swarm the opposition, and then you look and you've got no option.
Well, they're going past the ball. Like, you're told the whole career on an edge, don't go past the ball, let them stay connected, all that kind of stuff. They're out, flying out. You know, Fulton, Benji, all this, they're just going past it. They've taken the left-hand side away, and we really struggled with that. And then I think Jeremy Smith gets a ball off Feensy and just gets it down. Has a Mel Masri like it just seems like forever, but he rolls over and gets it down. And it was 12-6 at half-time. I was like, okay, we're sort of back. Like, I felt like we were sort of back at half-time when Jezza scored that try.
Yeah, and then obviously it was the big play where you threw the ball over the top.
Yeah, well, that was at half-time. So Gaz had sort of said, like, mate, you just got to throw the pass. They're coming up past it, but they're watching the players. They're not watching the ball.
Yeah.
So we have a shift inside our own end where I just catch it, and Lottie sort of half doesn't really look at the ball, and it just goes past him to Gaz. Sorry, not the centre. I think Chris Lawrence, actually. Gaz gets it on the outside. Gypsy does what he does, comes back in. Fart around. Anyway, we're screaming to go the ball left. I think BMOS is unmarked, and we're like, pass it. Dino, little inside ball. Jay scores under the post, 12-all. I didn't think we were going to get beat after that. It was just going to be a matter of whether we could ice the game. But it was Gaz at halftime said, mate, just throw it. They're not actually watching the ball. And you see a lot of centres, and BMOS will tell you now, like centres, they don't really watch the ball a lot. They watch the player.
Yeah.
So the play unfolds, and you're like, you could have taken that intercept. And they go, oh, I didn't see it. Or it's like... So we were lucky to get to the outside, and Jace finished it off underneath the post. We had 2 conversions right in front, which made it 12-all.
12-all. Talk us through what happens next with 6 minutes to go.
Depends on who you ask, because...
Well, I'm asking you, mate.
Okay. So Lottie...
BMOS can give his version of events a little bit.
I on the wing and watched it.
Lottie gets accidentally kneed in the back by Jezza coming across. There's a stoppage in play, and I looked up, and there was probably only 5 minutes to go, or 6 minutes to go, as you said, but they were on the attack, so they had a chance to set up their last play. Play resumes, Benji kicks out in the full. That whole set, I just said, I'm going for a field goal. No matter where we get to, I'm just going to have a crack. And all year we'd practiced. I still don't think young players do it enough. They don't know where to set up for field goals. All year we knew that I was going to kick it, and it was going to be just outside right post. So... that whole set, I don't even get involved. I'm just making sure that we finish on the right post. Feensy goes to hit me, takes one more short side to Bowie, which ended up being a great play because they'd rushed us. They had to get back further, and then Feensy delivered the perfect pass exactly where I needed it and slotted it.
Was that planned, the short side to Bosco?
No. This is, Feensy just felt because I was deep, and Feensy just could see them getting ready to rush out, and Bowie just took one more.
Yeah.
And the pass didn't change, the distance, but yeah, it was just probably the sweetest kick I've ever hit.
You've got to be intelligent there if you're Bo Scott to keep it nice and tight, because if he runs any form of outline, it screws your position.
Yeah, well, that was a credit to the coaching, but also putting your ego aside and like sticking to
Yeah.
the plan. You know, all year we'd practice at training, get to right post. Like we didn't have get to here and we're going to switch it back, or get to left post and Benny's going to be a decoy. Like we just knew that we'd get to outside right post and I'd kick the field goal. Whether I missed or not was up to me, but we just knew that was the plan. So they got there, and if you watch the boys that stand in front, like everyone just knew their position.
Did you feel the pressure?
Nah. 'Cause in the warm up, I usually kick 3, and I'd hit one. My first one, I didn't kick anymore, and it was the only
Really?
time I've ever done it. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
So every warm up prior to that game,
3
you hit
field
three
goals.
field
I'd make 3 field goals, whether I missed a couple or not. And then that night, I hit one, and I was like, that came out of the screws. It was the opposite end, and then yeah. There was still 4 minutes to go, but
Wow.
it wasn't even
Yeah.
the biggest play of the game. That was just my job. The biggest play of the game comes in the next couple of minutes. Yeah, but at that time, it was just expected. Like cut out pass or kick for him, he was expected to score.
4 minutes to go. 13-12 up. Talk us through that.
It's down your side.
Yeah, you're playing against the Tigers.
There's a minute left. The
who
scrum.
love shifting.
Yeah.
So you expected they were going to go side to side for that last couple of minutes, obviously to try and make up field position, but also they were going to try and score, first of all.
You think
by
they were
moving the
going
footy.
in mentality, let's score and win it, or let's go
Yeah,
for a field
no,
goal?
no.
Yeah, they're
Score-
going.
they're going
They're
score
playing to
and win
win.
it.
They're not playing for extra time.
Their mindset was score and win it. And, you know, all Sheensy's sides that played in the past were really good at moving the footy. So, mate, our defensive line, you just see blokes for the last 4 minutes just going backwards and forwards. Like one bloke, I think, ran from this side, got to about centre, and then ended up coming back and being at centre on this. I think it was Dean Young behind, just following the play left to right, ends up coming. They end up making the half break. I think it was who was the big front row? Galloway.
Yeah.
Keith Galloway. He's on an edge for some reason. Carts it up, throws a dummy, gets 3 blokes interested, and then throws an offload. And then it's like, holy shit, we're short now. And then obviously Dino comes across and forces old mate to kick. And obviously Darius is still in a good enough position that he can turn and beat, was it Bowie Ryan or Daniel Fitzhenry? To
Yeah,
the ball?
Fitzhenry, yeah. Bo Ryan kicked. If he had kept running and passed inside, we lose.
Yeah.
Really?
Because Dino's coming across.
Yeah.
If you watch it back, Dino says he'll probably get there, and he probably maybe does, but
It's close.
winger, you should
Yeah.
be. If he just keeps going and doesn't kick it, I reckon he passes inside and we lose. It would have been heartbreak because we were scrambling like Melbourne, Cronulla, Melbourne. That's what it was like. You just everything
Yeah.
goes out the window. You want to solve it. You want to stop the play. Like Bowie had dived at Benji and he sort of bounced around, skipped, and big Keithy Galloway's out there and he's throwing dummies and flicking back. And
Yeah,
we were
I
like,
ended up in that tackle, so I was
Yeah.
out of the play.
but Dino just kept going and made him kick. And then in the end, even Darbs got the ball and threw it dead instead of just diving on it. And
Yeah.
it was just, that was our destiny part. That was our one play where it was like, we're meant to,
Yeah.
we're meant to win this year.
Some effort plays like that from Dean Young, like, wow.
Yeah. We had guys like that in our team all year, but
Yeah.
Dino, Jeremy Smith, Nev Costigan.
Yeah.
mate, even
Those guys
Mickey
weren't
Wayman.
spoken about because like our pack was Michael Wayman, Neville Costigan, Dino, Benny Cray, Bo Scott, Jeremy Smith, Mez, Dan Hunt,
Matt Pryor.
Matt Pryor, Jared Saffy.
Jared
Like
Saffy.
everyone's like, Jared Saffy, like mate, he was one of the hardest players like on the field. You know, he just was so good. John Green filled in. Like we just had a lot of guys that just would bash the shit out of you pretty much and go after you. And that they were the guys that sort of set it up for everyone else.
The build-up for the grand final starts as soon as the final whistle's over, really. How's Wayne in the dressing room, and how's the approach to the biggest game of your professional lives?
No, his message was pretty simple from memory. It was, don't change anything. Like, keep everything the same. Do what you would normally do. If you go out for a coffee in the week, go out for a coffee. You go to the beach for a second, go. Don't be afraid of what this week is. Like, enjoy it for what it is. So don't get all caught up in the media, the hype, all that sort of stuff. Just stay relaxed and have your normal life. Like, it's just another game, you know? And I think for a lot of the younger guys, that was a really assuring sort of mindset. Like, we don't need to change much.
There's so much that goes on grand final
Yeah.
week. I've been an advocate. I think that week you should have off. It should be like the Super Bowl. Have 2 weeks to build up. Give guys a chance to rest niggles, whatever. you're doing grand final breakfast, you're doing media, all that kind of stuff. So you're trying to remain normal and tell yourself this is normal. This is not the biggest game of my life, but you're also jumping from here to there. I think the best thing Wayne did was we had one open training run down at Wollongong where we had the fans. We had one in Cogra. Then we went and camped in Bondi. We're playing the Roosters and we set up camp in Bondi at Swiss Grand.
Was that like a superstition of Wayne's? He needed to be at that hotel, or
so I said to him before the
because the.
Well, I just said, like, we're playing the Roosters.
It's almost a bit arrogant, a bit of a mental play.
No, because we did it the week before.
We did it the week before. And
we
I
didn't know we
said
were going to be playing there.
Mate, what are we doing? Like, why are we camping in here? And he goes, mate, I've fucking won 6 grand finals here. Well, this is the place. And I was like, good enough for me. Great. He's 6 from 6 camping at the Swiss Grand.
Yeah.
5 from 5. There's 6 or 7. How many grand finals he won? 7?
I think he won 6 at that stage.
Yeah, he'd won 6. He goes, fuck, we've won 6. I've won 6 from 6 grand finals here. We're camping.
Don't care who.
And I just
playing.
went, that's fucking so cool.
Yeah.
He's just hammered me with a great bit of banter, but that's just so cool. That's just Clint Eastwood.
Was it strange to have the build-up in the backyard of the opposition?
No, do you know what? It wasn't because we'd been there the week before. And I remember the week before against the Tigers was a really, really hot day. So we were down Bondi Beach swimming in the morning before we went to that game. And because we stayed in Bondi, I thought, all right, we're just going to do the same. We're going to deal with all the fans before it and that'll be done and sweet. But the grand final day, it actually rained. So we didn't actually go out. So we were in enemy territory, but no one even saw us. No one would have even known that we were there.
We had a comedian come in one night. It was pretty funny. Like, we just, again, sort of harp on it, but it was pre-phone, pre-smartphone era. So okay, boys, we're going to do this. All right, let's all walk for an ice cream. Like, we just went together and we were accustomed to what that environment was going to be like. So we just hung out so many times. And like Bemo said, instead of going for a walk on game day, it was pissing down rain. So we just sat around and played Chinese whispers. Like, no teamwork, sitting around just hanging shit on each other. It was the weirdest build up to the biggest game of your life. But we weren't thinking about the biggest game of our lives. We were just thinking about how much shit we could hang on each other.
Yeah. It's not a bad approach, and it obviously worked. The game itself, coming up against the Roosters, you're saying nothing's changed, but it's a huge game. Like, when you think of the Anzac Day clashes between the two famous clubs, a lot of history from both clubs. Again, I mentioned about the sense of occasion for the Tigers, but this must have been like dialed through the roof, off the Richter scale.
Yeah, it was insane. Obviously, Dragons fans, everyone was just coming out of the woodworks that week. Like, they had their Dragons jerseys on. Everywhere you felt, it felt like there was just Dragons fans everywhere. And when we got to the grand final day and you ran out and you looked at the crowd, it was like, holy shit. I think every Dragons fan in Australia is here. Like, we outnumbered them probably 3-1, I reckon. Probably
We didn't
even
see
more.
the crowd. So
Even
now
more.
you see the players, you know, we've all commentated, like, they come out while the music's getting played and they accustom themselves. We got there a little bit late, like later than what we normally would in terms of our prep, and we just went straight underneath. So we didn't see...
Oh, so you were running late? Or?
Not running late.
Yeah,
we were just a little bit less time to sort of sit around, but we didn't see the crowd until we went out there. And it was just red and white everywhere. We just couldn't believe it was red and white everywhere. It was really cool, but you see players come out now, like the last couple of years, they got their headphones and they walk around and all that kind of stuff. Like, we just got in there, went in, got strapped, okay, warmed up, ran out. And the when we ran out, there's 2 parts to it. Wayne said when you run out, because we used to run out and I used to run and scream and go to the corner, all that kind of stuff. He said, do that. They'll have to wait for us. So Roosters walk out really, really slow. They go to the thing, they stand there.
Yeah.
We walk out, we just disperse. So we're over here.
Yeah.
So it takes probably a minute and a half for us to come back in. And they've been standing there for nearly 2 minutes by the time things. So by the time the anthem and all that kind of stuff, like, we were ready to go.
Yeah. Can you remember much from the first half? Obviously, Roosters going at halftime up.
Yeah, my memory was we had a pretty bad half in terms of the style that we played and our systems. We were just making uncommon errors. And again, it was that whole thing about if anyone was going to beat us, it was ourselves. And in that first half, mate, yeah.
It was a weird time kickoff
We
too because
just-
it was sort of wet and it was afternoon. It was the first half was in day, the second half was going to be at night. So it was a bit sludgy, so we couldn't get out of our end. BMOS ran into touch, allegedly.
I was way out. Way out.
He goes out. So when we scored the first try, and then I think I missed a penalty goal to go to 8-0, and then Braith's try wasn't a try either, I don't think, where it sort of gets knocked on.
up.
That was a square up. So for Roosters fans, they're saying that they got cheated. Then they put a really good play on at just before half time. Orbo, great out ball, little skip out, great play. Got Coops, who's probably one of the best defensive centres ever. And then there's a play just before half time where Benny Hornby takes a kick on our line.
Yeah.
So it's 8-6 at this stage. If they had got to 14-6, I don't know. I don't know how it starts. But the two plays for me were that play from Benny Hornby where he takes the ball right on his line and we had to get out of trouble. Like we were dropping it, coming out of our end.
Yeah.
I think Michael Wayman got knocked out, so that put pressure on our forward pack, to be able to carry the yardage and all that kind of stuff. But we just weren't ourselves. But that play from Benny Hornby just before half time was one of the biggest plays of the game.
Yeah, I remember watching it going, holy moly. That was insane. There would have been 6 or 7 blokes around the footy and he just got way above
He doesn't get
everyone.
talked enough about, for me. He doesn't get
one
talked
of the
enough about
biggest
his
plays.
transformation from fullback to halfback. Well, he's played halfback for Australia.
Yeah.
So that transformation, but that play right there was him as a fullback. And he wasn't big either, but it was just a great play. He just put his body in the line, caught the ball. It would have been 14-6. Oh, it would have been a long way back.
Yeah. So half time, biggest game of your professional lives. Like I say, you're behind. Benny's just come up with this big play. You're not playing how you want to. Who's the dominant voice in the room? Is it Wayne?
Quiet.
We were quiet, but I don't think it was a sense of panic. I think it was we realised that we hadn't played our style of footy, or that wasn't us in that first half, and I think that was made clear. I think Dino was a pretty good talker. Dino and Benny were both talking the most. I think just sort of said, "Boys, that wasn't us. That wasn't us. Okay, we got another 40 minutes. We can do this." And Wayne kept it so simple. I remember him because I was pissed off after it. He goes, "Hey boys, we've been attacking to the left the whole time. They've got our left covered. How about we go right?" And I went, "I'm not going to see the ball now." Obviously, being a kid, you want to score in a grand final, but mate, just something so simple as that. Let's go right. You watch the second half. What did we do?
Yeah.
We went right. We scored how many tries?
3 or 4.
But it wasn't panic stations. Like we knew we hadn't played our best half of footy. We knew that wasn't the Dragons side that we'd been for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Or the side that had been especially for that year. We knew that if we got our shit together, we were going to win that game.
He just had a sense of being able to address the group. Like we had great leaders. We had a great leadership group and guys that were tested and played, in some big games. So when Benny and Dino spoke, like I don't know what it's like now in leadership groups, but they tend to be quite big. We didn't have a big leadership group. It was sort of Dino and Benny. They led it all, and then off the back of that, Benny Cray and Coops and sort of were the next leadership. So when they spoke, like we were at attention. Wayne came in and kept it really calm. I just remember him saying what stood out to me was that's not the Dragons out there that we are, and we need to win the second half. And I sort of like looked around. I was like, thanks, Scoop. Like we're down 8-6. Of course we need to win the second half. I stopped instantly thinking about how shit we were in the first half and what we need to do. But then after we broke up, there's vision of like little chats about how we were going to go about it. He said to Feensy, Minnie's sort of in the line there, let's try and get a kick in behind to get some repeat sets and how we're going to do it. And as Bemo said, we're going to go right a little bit. And Benny Hornby come to me and said, I'm going to get over the right-hand side and try and get into the line a little bit more. You go to the left, and that was all good. After half-time, if you watch the grand final back, we had an exclusive plan to kick the BJ Leilua the whole game. And we got that first try through Gaz. We run a set and I punch it down to that right-hand corner. And if you watch that red and white wall, that was when we were back. To me, it pinned them down 2 metres out. And I think for the next 30 minutes, they didn't get into our 20.
Yeah.
We just went back to like, okay, and everyone took a breath and went, that's us. And then we started playing some really good footy. We were completing at a high click. We were defending really well. We were forcing them into errors. That was that first set for me after half time set the tone for the rest of the half.
And that was our style of footy that accompanied that. We had a really good defensive side, but we also had an attacking side that complemented the way that we defended. And we weren't afraid to play footy in the wet either. If you look at the way we moved the footy in those conditions, mate, we were pretty slick in that second half. The first half, we didn't quite nail it, but in that second half, mate, we, taking it deep in the line, making passes hard to catch, but the skill of our players to execute those plays was.
But the arrogance was off the back of our defence.
Yeah, exactly.
Penrith the last 4 years, as defence have been so good. Like, we were going into games knowing that we only had to score 12 points. So everyone was going, your attack's shit. And we're like, it's not shit. We just know that we only have to score 12 points to beat you. And like Bennett said, in that second half, we were still on our average. We didn't concede a point in every second half of the finals. So Manly, we didn't concede a point. Tigers, we didn't concede a point. Roosters, we didn't concede a point.
Wow.
We knew we were going to finish over the top of teams with our defence, which led to our attack being slick.
Yeah, wow. That knowledge of your ability to win second halves must have been huge, and you absolutely dominated. At what stage did you know it's done?
I reckon it was probably after 90's second try, would you say?
Oh, I got in trouble from Gaz. Dino's try.
Dino's definitely.
Because I thought that was a forward pass. I thought he'd knocked it on.
Dino's definitely, but...
Yeah, Dino's try, we started to carry on Yahoo a little bit. And then that was... It just didn't seem real, mate, honestly. Like, it just did not seem real. I think they got down into our 20 with about 6 to go, and me and Jace were sort of Yahooing a little bit, and Gaz is into us, like, 0. I'm like, mate, it's 32-8, relax. We're going to be okay. But after Dino's try, it was really cool. And then Feensey's... We went to set up a field goal, and Feensey dummied to me and went in, and then that was like party time.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah. I've been in such a high pressure environment like a grand final, and being able to celebrate with 10 minutes to go, like, that's, you don't get that very often. Like, it's incredible to think that you're out there knowing that you're going to win a grand final.
It didn't feel like we knew, like, we weren't saying, boys, come on, we've got it. Like, it was just more... We just wanted to reward ourselves for the hard work that we've done. Yeah, from that first camp, from Wayne coming in, setting the tone, all that. Like, this was all of it in one. So we all took a breath and it was like, yeah, this is cool.
The celebrations, obviously iconic image of Dean Young and his father. But for you guys, what stands out in your mind when you paint that mental picture, that imagery? What's still burning in there, B-Moss, from that?
Oh, I think just the emotion of everyone, to be honest. Like, you look at all the players there, like that Dino and Albert, obviously that's a pretty special picture, father and son, embracing, but tears, mate. There were tears from everyone because of the amount of effort that had gone into the heartache. As I said, there were guys there that played 05, 06 that didn't quite get there, that had to listen to all that, all that choker stuff. But as a group, we knew that we'd accomplished something pretty special. And, mate, the emotion obviously gets the better of you. There's tears. And there's tears, it's joy. There's just, mate, I don't know in rugby league if there is a better feeling than winning competition. I
can't speak for him. His name's synonymous with Dragons history, and he's, like I said, not embarrassing him. He's one of the greats of the game. So he's emotion, and it's been embedded in him the whole time. I had 2 parts. I was super proud of our group and the journey that we'd been on, all that kind of stuff. Can we swear on this podcast?
If you want.
Yeah. The other part was like, fuck you to everyone else, because we'd had some shit people writing us off individually and as a team about being chokers and couldn't do it, couldn't do this, couldn't win with Ben Hornby at halfback. Individually, I was a turnstile, like I'd been rated the most overrated player. Like, so I was like, fuck you to everyone.
Yeah.
Because rings are hard to get. And to get one, that was really, really cool.
I can understand that feeling where proving people wrong.
The celebrations afterwards, I don't think we celebrated hard enough looking back. Now I see the boys like, if I could go back in a time capsule of that, I would do so much more cool stuff.
You didn't. What do you mean you didn't celebrate enough? Because you've got 2 fan bases to cover.
Well, that was
as well.
the thing, right? So we had.
Could you have gone harder?
I think we could have. I think what killed. Look, there was some killing of momentum having to go to Wollongong the next day after we'd been on the syrup all night. Because we stayed at the
Sunday
stadium.
evening.
We stayed at Cogra. The fans that went back there, that was awesome. Next morning, we get up at 8 o'clock for a tour on the bus, English style. Mm-hmm. There's no one out, no one's awake. It's public holiday, so everyone's
in Cogra.
We went around Cogra to like 20 people. I think there was like
Open top bus.
Open top bus.
Yeah,
like, yes, boys. How
Yeah, they're
good's
going to be
this?
lying in the streets.
And they weren't. They were all in bed. So then we like went to Wollongong. No beer or anything on the bus. We
beer on the
We
bus?
start slagging each other off. We're having.
Seriously, no.
There's a reason behind it. We get to Wollongong.
What can we ask about the reason now?
Yeah, so it's gonna extend into what is a really good day on Tuesday. But we went down
Monday.
to Wollongong. We're all like, "Where's the beers?" And then we end up getting taken to a private place to have just players celebrate, which was the best part by far. Nothing that we can talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
But
This is on the Monday.
Monday night.
Oh, so hang on. You've gone down.
Wollongong, thanks. Appreciate everything.
On stage.
Love being here
Sing
on
the
stage.
song.
Awesome. In song. Great. Get on the bus. Still no beers on the bus on the way back.
Seriously.
Everyone's.
And you're going from Wollongong back to Sydney.
Yep. So we go Sydney, Wollongong, Sydney.
And
Then that's the best part that we can't talk about.
yeah, but it's dry up until this moment.
Then, yeah. Well, we drunk up until the trips.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I just remember this guy, me and him dressed as Bert and Ernie for our Mad Monday.
Which was on the Tuesday.
Which is on the Tuesday. And we asked the cab driver to go to Sesame Street and down in Dapto. She proceeded to look it up in the directory.
Where are you off
Couldn't
to,
find
boys?
it.
Can you take us to Sesame Street? Yeah, no worries. Where's that?
So we go in.
God.
But the best part was Monday or Tuesday afternoon, sitting down, rewatching the whole grand final. That for me was the best part. Well, we'd done all the drinking, celebrating, but I just look at the boys now with the goggles and like how long they go for. And I just think, I don't know if we went hard enough back in the day. That's my personal thought.
So when did it wrap up?
Wednesday, I remember sitting at Darius Boyd's unit on Wednesday, like after a fair crack, me and Ben was, and he's like, "Boys, we've got to enjoy this. We've got to go harder. We've got to go longer." I was like, "Mate, I don't know if I can go much longer." At the time, he's like, "You don't know when you're going to get back." And he'd won a grand final in 2006, his first year in the NRL. He'd won one in 2010. Like, it was just, I think the great part about it was we enjoyed each other's company really, really well. But listening to Dragons fans now tell their story about being there on the day and what their recognition was of the group and then how they saw the game and all that kind of stuff. That's the cool part now, and being able to wear a premiership ring.
Yeah. Who was best on ground in those celebrations?
Jeez. There was one that was nicknamed the Hurricane after it. Holy shit. Did some damage. I won't give it away, but, mate, he was out of control.
Yeah.
It was just like, holy crap. Never seen this before, but it was impressive.
It was.
Best on
There was no
ground.
phones.
Best
I
on
just
ground.
can't stress how cool it was with no
yeah.
phones. So there was no like me being a dickhead and then someone like taping it and then sharing it to WhatsApp and then all of a sudden it leaks. Like
Yeah.
there just wasn't that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Wayne fell asleep. We had two parts to the stadium. So there was like the sleeping resting room, which was the old home room for the Dragons. On the left there as you walk in. And that was like the rest group. You want to go and have a rest? Lay down. It's a couple of big days. Wayne goes to sleep in like the fire room, like the private room, and Nev Costigan sneaks in with the fire extinguisher. And he reckons, like Nev was pissed. And he goes, I said, he was going to spray the fire extinguisher on the boys. He goes, "Mate," I go, "What happened?" He come back sober. He goes, "Mate, I just went in to get like Wayne, and he went from the drunkest man to the soberest man in the world because Wayne just said, 'Mate, fuck off,' like straight away. He could just feel it. So he's just like sober. But we sat down in a group. We had Norman Arthur in the middle. We had cigars. We had drinks. Like just the players. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
excessive. Yeah, that was the special stuff.
It's funny that you say about phones, like those people that are involved in moments now, they can capture that and they can look back, and I guess to an extent you can see that physical copy, but not at the same level. But I don't think
you've
you'd
got like
swap
3
it.
photos from the grand
Well,
final.
why would you swap it? I think.
No, because the best part is when someone brings it up as a story and tells it to you. And
Yeah.
and it
You get to hear
triggers
different
and it
versions.
triggers all the thoughts again and all the feelings that you had associated with them. I know you get that with a phone or whatever, but when you're hearing it through, when he's telling me these stories, it's hilarious. Like, and it brings back, like I said, you just go back to that moment, put you back in that moment, you feel those feelings again, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun that we didn't have the phones because the stories are some of the best parts of it.
All right, lads. Well, just final thoughts from the year that was 2010 BMOs, and then so if you could just finish us off.
Well, my biggest thoughts of that, obviously, I said it, I felt like there was no one that year that could beat us. And I look at that team that we had there, and there were a lot of local juniors in that team. So there were guys that grew up in the area supporting the Dragons. And obviously Wayne tapped into that. He did a really good job of tapping into that, but he also had that experience of being able to know what we needed at that time. Because as we said, we had really good guys there, but we just needed that little bit extra just to help us get across the finish line. Obviously, Sowie was one of those guys. He just came to the club just before that. But again, like if we didn't have Sowie, we don't win that. Jeremy Smith guy that we brought to the club, Darius Boyd, if we don't bring these guys to the club, do we win that comp? I don't know. But the whole part of that, the mix that we had there at that time was almost perfect. Like the 10 to the 17, I think, in the grand final were local juniors. So again, grown up watching the team play. But that sprinkle of those 7 guys were what we needed to win that comp. And it was a special group because we just wanted to win so bad, and we did it and we achieved it. So I think that was the best part of 2010. It made a lot of dreams come true for a lot of people in that team.
Sorry?
Yeah, not being a local junior and coming from outside in, I just knew how big the club was and the expectation around it from 05, 06. I'd been at those games. I was playing lower grades. I'd watch BMOS, win Jersey Flegg the year and then go to first grade, and it was living out a dream just to play first grade. But I think the camaraderie that we had within that group, we've said it about 6 times, like the no phones, the stories. Like we only had our first reunion last year or the year before, I think, because of COVID, like a 10-year reunion. It's like we've never left. And it's because of the sacrifices that we made, the Dean Young going through all those injuries, making that play in the semi-final, Benny Hornby switching positions, Darius coming down, following Wayne, Jeremy Smith. Like Jeremy Smith left Melbourne, probably the most successful club at that time, to come up. Bo Scott, all those little stories, Matty Pryor, that made the group special. And whether people or not will agree with this, like over the last 15 years, BMOS has played in another grand final and won. That our team's probably not looked upon as one of the most star-studded teams that's going to win and beat other grand final teams, but we were tight. We were really good defensively. We knew how to work for each other, and we respected each other's game. And that all stemmed from what Wayne brought, the standards, and he just knows how to get the best out of everyone. That's why South might be a smoky this year.
Well, boys, I thoroughly enjoyed.
Looking for a job.
I do need a job. I can camera anything. I'm listening to Jam, Cheese and Sowie. Sounds great. I'll do anything.
Well, lads, look, that was absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed hearing those stories, going into some details about the season that was. It was huge for Dragons fans. Interesting to see if and when they get back there. But that moment in history will be there forever. BMOS, Sowie, thank you so much for sharing those stories on the bar round.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Cheers, guys.